Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back, Matthew Watty's channel. Today we are continuing on with the My Favorite WWF LJN Manager Tournament. And you know what? I'm just kind of thinking as I signed out of my last video. So I kind of feel like everybody, well, not everybody, but a lot of people that I watch, man, they all seem to have like these fantastic openings or, fantastic closing. And I need to do something for my channel as well because, some of that stuff is amazing. One of my favorite channels that I like to watch, the Conservative Twins. Absolutely amazing content. They're funny as heck. The chit chat that they got going back and forth. Ragging on each other. The commentary is intelligent. They got good subjects and whatnot. And every video it opens up with, "We got a good show for you. We got a damn good show." It's funny and I love that. 2020, I think it was the very first time that I really watched YouTube for, I used to watch YouTube for like video clips from like certain movies or certain TV shows, right? Or I'd try and find like a music or, a music video to watch or something. But like actually watching YouTube apart from regular TV, like substituting it essentially, I didn't do that until like 2020. And what happened in 2020? Once we got kicked out of our apartments out on the economy and had to move on base, during our off time, like YouTube was there. So YouTube ended up being something that I gravitate towards for like, TV show. Well, not really TV show, but content like this. And over the last few years, I don't watch regular TV anymore. Probably because my wife did away with all the cable and stuff. She's got all these streaming services. I don't use any of the streaming services. You get on Netflix, and I think The Flash, for example, season 9. Like 3 months after The Flash season 9 aired on Netflix, I think I finally watched like the first couple episodes. Like I watched one episode and watched like 4 episodes, or another episode like 4 days later. And then like another 3 months passed before I watched like another couple episodes. So one of my all-time favorite shows, and I have absolutely no interest in watching that final season. So TV just doesn't do it for me anymore. TV shows don't do it for me. Movies aren't excitable anymore. So I gravitate towards YouTube, and I enjoy what I watch. Mostly because to me it's like very easy watching, easy viewing. You might get a 10-minute video, you might get a 30-minute video, but they're always going to be more enjoyable than regular TV, I guess. I kind of look at it as like a real people, real stories type of deal. 2020, the first YouTuber that I ever became aware of, like actually knew by name, was Sniper Wolf. And yeah, I know everybody's hating on Sniper Wolf because of what she's done over the last couple months and with her legal problems and whatnot, but she really was the first YouTuber I actually knew by name and whatnot. And she was just all over the place, so it was easy, very easy to find her and be familiar with her and whatnot. But, she'd like open up her channel with, "Hello friends, it's me," or she'd close her video with the wolf howl and whatnot, and that's like her signature mark. And Charlotte Dobre, she ends her video by kind of yelling at everybody to subscribe. So it's funny and it's entertaining and whatnot. So I just kind of been thinking about that, and I'm curious what my entry could be or what my exit could be from my videos. I haven't been able to come up with anything, so I guess I'm asking you guys for your help in kind of coming up with something clever. The simple hello everyone, thank you for joining me. It's it's how I feel. I want everyone to know I'm appreciative of their viewership and whatnot. So but I kind of want to do something a little bit more special. But enough of that. You guys came here to see the continuation of this tournament, so let's dive into the next set of matches, shall we? Alright, so as we dive into this hat, the next matchup is going to feature Red Bobby Heenan. What was this? Okay, so, ooh, interesting. That is an interesting match. Red Bobby Heenan versus Elf Bobby Heenan. Alright, next matchup is going to be Johnny Valiant as he squares off against Freddie Blassie. Next up is Blue Referee. Try and find you guys a good one. He will square off against Mr. Slick. Alright, and the last matchup is going to feature Jimmy Hart Black, Nasty Boys, versus Howard Finkel. Okay, cool. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to pull these figures, and I will be back momentarily. Alright, folks. Alright, so the 8 figures have been pulled. First matchup we're looking at is Bobby Heenan Red, and he will square off against Bobby Heenan Elf. And this is an incredible first matchup. Let's start with the red. So, absolutely love the red shirt, and with the red glitter, you know, it really makes this figure pop. And I talked about the, you know, gray shirt, Bobby Heenan from Robert Jackson being my favorite Heenan figure, but I don't know, man. This is a tough one because these are all fantastic figures, and with the red bow tie mixing in with the red sweater, incredible look. Not a whole lot you could say about the figure that hasn't already been said about past Bobby Heenan figures. And these Christmas versions of these LJNs are amazing. My wife said about last year, she made a Hillbilly Jim Santa Claus. And I think I picked this one up. Who did I buy this from? I don't remember. I can't remember if this came off Mercari or eBay, but I've got a few different Christmas-related LJN figures, and this is absolutely phenomenal. Before we even begin, I don't know. This is a tough one. I mean, Bobby Heenan, the Weasel. One of my favorite Bobby Heenan memories. And I'm thinking it was like a Saturday morning episode of wrestling. What was that? It wasn't Wrestling Superstars, but I just kind of remember that I think the Ultimate Warrior and Macho Man were supposed to, you know, tag team against Ric Flair and Razor Ramon. And Ultimate Warrior was out of the company, so Macho Man was searching for a tag team partner. And, you know, you had like Hillbilly Jim, you had Mr. Perfect, you had Bobby Heenan, Vince McMahon, and they're all, you know, sitting around like this circular table. And Macho Man, he's on the big screen, and, you know, he's talking about, you know, finding the perfect partner. And everybody knows that he's gravitating towards Mr. Perfect. Mr. Perfect, you know, he worked with Ric Flair, he managed Ric Flair. Yeah, he's the perfect he's the perfect person because he knows the in and outs of Ric Flair, and he's one of the most brilliant, fantastic athletes, you know, professional wrestlers ever. So they didn't win the titles, unfortunately, but Bobby Heenan was such a freaking douche. Like, the way that he belittled and just tore down Mr. Perfect. Like, oh, you know, he's not a wrestler. You know, he's a manager. You know, he hasn't wrestled in over a year. You know, he can't take on the world's champion, Ric Flair, yada, yada, yada. And you just kind of see Mr. Perfect sit off to the side, kind of stare at Bobby Heenan, like, while he's belittling him time after time. And it's like, yeah, you wonder why he accepted the Macho Man's request to join him as his tag team partner. And the way that Mr. Perfect grabbed him, and you had Bobby Heenan sitting there begging for his life, essentially. Perfect. Bobby Heenan is an absolutely brilliant actor. You know, wrestling is 50% athletics, but it's also 50% acting. And Bobby Heenan, for what he does, is just perfect in his role. This is tough. I think I'm going to go with the elf. Simply because it's different enough from anything else that I have. I think this might actually be probably the most unique figure of the entire collection, which makes it one of the most interesting. When I talked about redoing the My Favorite LJN tournament, for the third time, or redoing it for the second time, third overall, I've talked about probably 3 or 4 figures that have a legitimate chance at usurping the incumbent champion. Does a Bobby Heenan figure, of all figures, of all characters, potentially win that tournament? Like I said, I think that this elf is probably the most unique figure of this whole entire collection. And I think with the color scheme that I love, the Christmas aesthetics, which is phenomenal. Again, I love, Christmas time. So Bobby Heenan is a great figure, a coveted character in my life. Great fighting pose, awesome look. Who knows? This elf, if I ever redid that tournament, could potentially be the new winner. Guaranteed? No. Percentage? Out of 250 plus figures, I'd probably give this guy a 5% chance of winning. But 5% chance is astronomical when you're talking about 250 figures, right? So, yeah, Bobby Heenan elf. Right now, just kind of looking at what I've gone through thus far, this has to be a front runner for me. I don't know if he wins this particular tournament as the favorite manager, but he is definitely a front runner. Fantastic aesthetics to this figure. The elf does usurp the red shirt Bobby Heenan in order to make it to the next round. All right. Next battle is going to feature Classy Freddie Blassie as he squares off against Luscious Johnny Valiant. And we will start with Freddie Blassie. Again, neither manager was I very familiar with, if at all. It wasn't until I started collecting LJNs that these names became synonymous with me, or synonymous with wrestling, synonymous with wrestling and the wrestling LJN figures. But that Freddie Blassie figure quickly established himself as one of my favorite figures. And I always talk about, well, if you're wrestling, what is the go-to figure for you? I've always said that Hacksaw Jim Duggan Hasbro Series 2 with, blue tights, black boots, or blue shorts, was probably a top 10, one of my least favorite Hasbros, but that was strictly due to the lack of any type of color scheme or graphics or anything. But if you wanted a go-to action figure, the Jim Duggan is probably the most perfect figure for play. And Freddie Blassie, when I started collecting these figures in 2021, he was a very simple figure. I didn't really think much of it. In 2022, February, March, when I created this channel, the first videos I made were the My Favorite LJN tournament. And because I never had these figures as a kid, I had no idea about the feel of the figures, how they handle play-wise and whatnot. So I threw together a few Royal Rumble matches just to kind of get a feel for the figures. And you kind of have to imagine that these are real-life characters and how they would interact in a real-life wrestling match. I couldn't very well use Freddie Blassie long-term in a Royal Rumble match as a 70-year-old man. But at the same time, he was one of the most fun characters to use. I think if I had to sit down, I'd probably say SD Jones is probably one of my most favorite to play if I wanted to have matches. But Freddie Blassie, phenomenal. A lot of people complain about this particular suit. Maybe, he was dressed in corduroy, or maybe he had a bunch of, bunch of glitter stuff on his jackets or something. What have you. I don't know about that Freddie Blassie. I don't know about this Freddie Blassie. Did he ever wear this? Beats me. I've only seen pictures of Freddie Blassie with like the Iron Sheik, and he's got like the turban on and whatnot. But I don't remember Freddie Blassie, or I don't think I even knew about Freddie Blassie as a kid. And a lot, probably more than half of the LJNs, I didn't know anything about half of those characters until I started collecting them and started learning about them. And over the last few years, yeah, I've dedicated my life to not only collecting them, but learning as much history about the characters as possible. So Freddie Blassie, fantastic figure, awesome playability. He has a good accessory. The only issue I have with the accessory is it can be thin at times and could break. I've broken a few canes, and all I've done was slide it into the hand. So, but I like the figure a lot. I think it's one of my favorite. Now, when I was doing a countdown of like my top 10, no, he's not a top 10. I thought he might be. When I did my top 20, surprisingly, I don't think, if I recall correctly, I don't think he was on the top 20 list. But, you know what? I may have put him on the top 20. He may have been like 15 or 16 or something. I don't know. I filmed that video over a year ago, so I kind of don't exactly remember. But, man, it's been that long. Crap. What have I been doing with my life? Ever since I made that top 10 list, I wanted to do the 11 through 20, 21 through 30, 31. Basically, rate every single figure, what I value most to what I value least. And it took me several months to get to making that second video. Probably more than that, more than a year. And it took me several months from the time that I filmed it before I posted it. I think what kind of got me was I had made 3 videos, 11 through 20, 21 through 30, 31 through 40, and the second and third videos were corrupted, and I wasn't able to post those videos. And you know how I feel, man. It's like you spend all this time filming these videos, and to lose that content, you just feel like you just wasted, your time, energy, and whatnot. So. And I don't know if I would necessarily put the figures in the same order that I had them the first time. And that's what sucks as well. Freddie Blassie, fantastic piece. We looked at a custom Johnny Valiant in the last video. And this Johnny V is still pretty incredible. Absolutely love the overall colors. Pose-wise, it's fantastic. This would make a very playable figure. So I think when I was doing those tournaments or those Royal Rumble matches, I don't think I had a spare Johnny Valiant. And I kind of pointed out many times over this channel that when I was doing those tournaments or those Royal Rumbles, I was only wrestling figures that I had duplicates of. So like think of like a figure like a Hacksaw Jim Duggan, or what's a great one? Kamala. Kamala is one of the best figures ever, but I never got a feel for him because I wasn't actually utilizing him. But when you pick the figures up and you start looking at them, you hold them, you put your grip on them, whatnot, you can get a sense of their playability and the feel of the figure. I think Johnny Valiant is easily a second or third round figure in this kind of tournament. But he just went against one of my favorite LJNs, period, and to me, I think Freddie Blassie is an easy choice to move on to the next round. Alright, next matchup is going to feature Slick as he does battle against Blue Referee. Doctor of Style. So, here's the thing. Slick is another one of those guys I don't really remember. After his wrestling career, he actually became a real-life reverend, and I thought that was pretty awesome. And he may have actually been a reverend during the latter half of his, wrestling days as a manager and whatnot. But, he managed guys like the Twin Towers. And I kind of feel like I do remember him from childhood. Like he looks very reminiscent to someone I would have watched. I can't say for absolute certainty, and because of so many videos that I've gone back and watched over the last few years, I've become more familiar with him and, you know, the different matches he participated in as manager and whatnot. So all of those one-man gang and all those big boss man matches or tag teams and whatnot, am I remembering because I actually remember watching it, or do I have false memories and I only think that I remember because it's, you know, basically fresh and brand new in my head? But I kind of feel like I did see him as a kid. I just didn't have any memories of this character at all. Like, if you ask me wrestling-wise who was Slick, you know, 3 years ago, again, you know, it'd be like an episode of Jeopardy or something. Do 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 do. I don't know, but Slick is an interesting character, an interesting figure. I love the fact they give him like this sort of pimp look, and you know, with his 3-piece suit and everything, very classy. Love it. This is a fantastic look. I mean, shoot. I mean, I would love to have a suit this nice. But he's basically another Elizabeth figure. Not as tiny as Elizabeth, but he's like super crazy small, super thin. You know, small hands and whatnot. In fact, this figure probably looks like it could be molded after me. Small hands. Accessory is nice, but again, because he's so tiny, the accessory is so tiny. And playability-wise, I don't see, you know, you using Slick as like a wrestler. You know how like Jake Roberts has his hands up like this, and the snake kind of like, you know, fits in both hands. You can slide the snake in there. So that's kind of, again, that's kind of like a Jake Roberts type of pose to me. I utilized Jake Roberts. I didn't really have the most fun with it, but it was usable. So I guess you could use it. I say all the time, man, with wrestling figures, I don't care if the referees, managers, color analysts, commentators, you know, whatnot, they will all get utilized as actual wrestlers. I mean, maybe not anymore because, you know, adult, but I gotta change that though, man, because I watch so many of these wrestling channels. He's taking a break, but Jason from Blatant Interference Wrestling had one of my favorites, and you guys already know, Bone Breaking Action has always been probably my number one, you know, favorite channel, outside of maybe like 80s Revolution and whatnot. That's the channel that obviously got me interested and inspired for all of this. But there's probably 2 or 3, they call them Playtime Wrestling, or I think someone called his like PACW, PACW or something like that. So it's just a lot of fun. JP's Retro World, you know, he started, you know, he's got a few videos where he's got wrestling in his videos. He had a video recently with multiple matches in it, and I really hope that's like an ongoing thing, because I think that would make a really, you know, interesting storyline if he could kind of do what, you know, Jason over at Blatant Interference does. I gotta kind of throw the name of the content maker as well as their channel, because there's just so many Jasons that I talk about or that I deal with, you know, either as like they're sellers or maybe they got content on YouTube or whatnot. It's easy for me because I can remember everybody's name easily, but it can get confusing. Slick and the referee. I choose to view the referee as Earl and Dave Hebner. I think that's the most fun. I've always said that I don't think that these are modeled after anybody. They're just generic faces, generic looks, generic manager. You know, cartoony type character. Not supposed to emulate anybody in particular. But I guess I'd get more enjoyment out of it if I looked at them as the Hebner twins. So I think Series 1 of Zombie Sailors was Earl Hebner, and he was wearing a blue shirt, so I think I could call the blue shirt Earl, and I could call the white shirt Dave. But what about my customs? What about the pink shirt or the red shirt referee that I have? Who's that one guy? Jason has it in his matches all the time. Danny Davis. Danny Davis could be one of those managers, I guess. Danny Davis could be the pink shirt referee. Why not? What was it? It was a Royal Rumble I just watched very recently. I want to say the 1988 Royal Rumble. I finally caught that on YouTube, and Danny Davis was like this really skinny wrestler guy that came in and somehow got his butt whipped left and right, kept going after these big guys, and lasted a really long time. Like, what the heck was that all about? There are just certain guys that enter Royal Rumbles, and you're like, you know what? Get this clown out of here. I don't want anything to do with him. But you guys know how I feel about Royal Rumbles, man. If you're like the first 8 or 9 contestants in the Royal Rumble, 10 contestants, I want to see every single one of them in the ring at once. I don't want to see 3 guys in the ring, or, you know, man number 4 comes in, throws out the first 3, and then sits on the ropes for the next 7 guys because he throws them all out. That is so incredibly boring. In fact, I think I'm going to do a video about some of my least favorite Royal Rumbles ever. 94 with Diesel. I think it was 97 or 98 with Stone Cold. The 2015 Royal Rumble with Bray Wyatt. I'm like, this is why I gravitate towards the female Royal Rumbles, because their stuff is entertaining, and the males is just garbage nowadays. It's been garbage for 2 decades. Alright, enough of that. I finally got one referee push forward, and I do have one Slick push forward. Should either of that matter? No, not for this tournament. I like Slick, I love his look, but he's just not one of my favorites. Whereas I absolutely love referees. I think they should go very far, but it'll be fun to see how this plays out. I'm actually really looking forward to round 2. I think round 2 is probably going to be the most fun to film. It's going to be the most heartache because I'm going to be losing a lot of greats. By the time round 3 comes, I think I'll pretty much have an idea of where I'm going, hopefully. But Slick is going to go home for the tournament. And the last matchup we're looking at is Jimmy Hart versus Howard Finkel. Jimmy Hart and Howard Finkel. So, if you remember original San Francisco toy makers, a lot of their figures have duplicates. A lot of their figures have triplets. Like you think about Nasty Boys for original San Francisco. Nasty Boys have a black outfit. They've got a green outfit. They've got an orange outfit. Harlem Heat in black, Harlem Heat in red, Harlem Heat in blue, Harlem Heat in purple. You know, they reutilize the exact same characters, the exact same poses, same figures, just change out the color scheme. And it's like, if you're a collector, you want the whole collection, so you're going to buy them all, but it's so frustrating because they're all the same exact thing. Well, from Harvey over on Macari, Hulk $0125. I did purchase probably 20 figures from him over the last couple of weeks. Purchased over the course of 3 or 4 purchases. And a couple of them were Jimmy Hart Nasty Boy figures. We already seen one Jimmy Hart Nasty Boy figure earlier in this tournament. I believe this was in the first video, if I'm not mistaken, where he had the Nasty Boy heads on there with Nasty Boys on his back. So, that was one variant we saw earlier. This video is going to feature the other version of Jimmy Hart Nasty Boys. The only thing I don't like on this compared to the orange one is the orange one had the faces on here, and omitting that, it's it kind of sucks because I think that was amazing graphics to add to the overall figure. This one is not exactly mint even for like a custom figure, but that's okay. It still looks pretty incredible. Harvey Finkel. I picked this one up a few weeks ago. Most recently, within like the last, I don't know, last 4 or 5 days or so. Random Treasures came out with their own version of Howard Finkel. And it's like, man, I finally got myself a Howard Finkel. And I feel like Random Treasures keeps doing this on purpose, and it's driving me nuts. Like, I keep getting figures that you think should have been made, but never were. And you buy them custom from someone else, and then later on, Random Treasures comes out with that same type of figure. And it's like, darn. So there is something I like about this figure. You know, the way that, you know, his arm is kind of bent so that the microphone is kind of like, you know, not at his mouth, but, you know, kind of off to the side a little bit. So, you know, he could still kind of sit there and kind of like interview someone if you want, right? But it's close enough to the point where he could still kind of like talk into it. Excuse me. Great looking figure. You guys already know that I'm a huge fan of the Jimmy Hart figure. Love his character. What was it? I want to say it was NWA Wrestling or Mid-South. Man. A lot of these sub-territories fall under the umbrella of NWA back in the day. So I'm going to say Mid-South Wrestling. I could be wrong, but I don't remember who he was managing, but the only thing I kind of remember about the match was at the end of it, Jimmy Hart jumped in the match and started kicking on and wailing on the other guy. And I'm like, that is insane. That is the first time in my life I'd ever seen Jimmy Hart ever do any kind of offense against an opponent. You know, normally he jumps on, he jumps in the ring, or, you know, he's out on the outside of the ring and like Hulk Hogan might grab him and punch him and knock him over, or you know how like Hulk Hogan grabbing him and like tossing him over the ropes or something. He's always getting beat on, like, and to see him actually get some offense in was amazing. So for this particular matchup, I kind of feel like I know where I'm going. So this is a great figure. I think this one deserves a round 2. Round 2 placement. But kind of holding this one up and holding up the orange Jimmy Hart, I already know that the orange Jimmy Hart would defeat the black Jimmy Hart. With that being said, and just absolutely loving the head mold of the figure. Now, a lot of Kenny Lester figures from the Raider Nation, they have like this sort of glossiness to it. I always kind of called it lacquer. I know it's not lacquer, but lacquer, when we had our wood shop class in high school, that's, you know, what we put on the wood to make it shine and whatnot. And so that's kind of like what I look at. So you always see like this extra shininess or whatnot. And I don't know what it is that customizers use to get that gloss, but Mod Podge something, maybe. But Mod Podge kind of looks like glue too. But I just think it's important to have a Howard Finkel in this tournament for as long as possible. You know, guys like Mean Gene, like Howard Finkel, I think Bobby Heenan and Jimmy Hart, I would love to see those 4 guys in the Final 4. Is it going to happen? Maybe not, but the fun part is always the road to the end. So, Raider Nation's version of Howard Finkel does push forward to round 2. And the last Jimmy Hart. Is this the last Jimmy Hart? Alright, so we've already looked at the original Jimmy Hart. We've looked at the Hart Foundation Jimmy Hart. We've looked at Orange Nasty Boys Jimmy Hart. And we've now looked at Black Nasty Boys Jimmy Hart. So that's 4. I don't know if I have any other Jimmy Hart figures, so this might be the last one. Excuse me. Alright guys, so that is the last of this video. And let's see, you got 2, 3, 4. Alright, so we've got, 6. We got 7. Excuse me. Oh god. We've got 7 names left in the hat, so we're probably looking at three matchups in the last video. Oh, my throat's killing me. That means that the last matchup, whoever the last three are in the hat, will have a one-on-one-on-one. And let's see here. So we got 4, 8, 12, 16. 16. And if we do 3 matches. So I will choose 2 winners out of the last batch. 2 winners, and that'll give us 20 winners going into round 2. So it gives someone else an extra shot of pushing forward, so that's good. Alright, so that is the end of this video. This is round 1, part 4 of the My Favorite LJN Manager Tournament. And I guess until next time, guys, thanks for joining me. Talk to you guys later. Goodbye, everyone.